Good evening. I'm Sarah Robb-Scott, Bereavement Program Coordinator at WakeMed. Thank you for joining us on this special night as we remember loved ones who have died. Buenas tardes, soy Sarah Robb-Scott, coordinadora del programa de duelo en WakeMed. Gracias por acompañarnos en esta noche especial mientras recordamos a los seres queridos que han fallecido. Our WakeMed staff have also experienced personal losses of colleagues who have become friends, and our hearts are with them tonight. También estamos pensando en empleados de WakeMed que han perdido compañeros de trabajo. Near the end of our service, we will light a candle in memory of those who have died. If you would like to participate from home, I invite you to get a candle and a lighter or a match to have on hand for the candle lighting ritual. Cerca del final de nuestro servicio encenderemos una vela en memoria de los que han muerto. Si te gustaría participar desde casa, te invito a que consigas una vela y un encendedor o un fósforo para tener a mano para el ritual de encendido de velas. The program for this evening's service is linked in the description box within the YouTube page where this service is streaming. El programa del servicio de esta noche está vinculado en la descripción dentro de la página de YouTube donde se transmite este servicio. I'm glad that you are with us tonight. Please join me in a prayer. Me alegro de que estés con nosotros esta noche. Por favor, únanse a mí en una oración. Cradler of broken hearts and dryer of tears, we gather in this time and space to remember. Each person we remember tonight was a unique presence in our lives and in our world. Cuna de corazones rotos y secador de lágrimas, nos reunimos en este tiempo y en este espacio para recordar. Cada persona que recordamos esta noche fue una presencia única en nuestras vidas y en nuestro mundo. Our hearts in grief have felt the wide spectrum of human emotion, from deep pain and sadness to gratitude, and back and forth on this journey of learning a life without that person's physical presence. Nuestros corazones en el dolor han sentido la amplia gama de emociones humanas, desde el profundo dolor y la tristeza hasta la gratitud, y de ida y vuelta en este viaje de aprendizaje de una vida sin la presencia física de esta persona. May their memories be blessings to us. May the comfort of their names in our hearts and on our lips bring us peace. May we honor them and their memories well together. Que sus recuerdos sean bendiciones para nosotros, que el consuelo de sus nombres en nuestros corazones y en nuestros labios nos traiga paz, que podamos honrarlos bien a ellos y a sus recuerdos juntos. Amén.
Good evening. My name is Tina Morris Anderson, and I am a staff chaplain at WakeMed Raleigh. And this evening I will be singing For Good. I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes a sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now, whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship torn from its mooring by a wind off the sea, like a sea dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better. Because I knew you, because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
Thank you, Tina. That was beautiful. My name is Jeremy Gilmore. I'm the Director of Spiritual Care here at WakeMed. And on behalf of WakeMed Hospital and the Spiritual Care Department, thank you for joining us for this virtual service of remembrance. We've had challenging times over the last 19 months. So much has changed. Last year, when physical distancing began, it became difficult to have funerals or memorials in person. So in conversation with our administration, with Transitions Palliative Care, and with other partners, we decided to hold a virtual service to remember all those who died over the last year. As we begin, I'd like to thank those partners who made today possible. Thank you to our President and CEO, Donald Gensick, our Senior VP, Valerie Barlow, to Transitions Palliative Care Team, to the WakeMed Foundation, to Kristen Kelly in Marketing and Communications, to Sarah Robb-Scott for coordinating this program, and to all the participants today. Thank you for your support. There's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi that says, "There are no goodbyes for us. Wherever you are, you will always be in my heart." We know that our loved ones are not mere memories. They're not identification numbers. They're not ledgers on a page. But they're our family members. There are friends and co-workers. There are brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, grandparents, and best friends. Today we remember them. We make them members again. We remember our colleagues who walked with us to the parking lot each day, our relatives who made our favorite dessert on the holidays, our friends who counseled us through a breakup. Today, they are with us. Thank you for joining us tonight, for taking the time to remember all those who will always be in our hearts.
Good evening. My name is Monica Young, and I am the Advanced Care Planning Program Coordinator for WakeMed. It is an honor for you to allow me to commemorate this sacred moment with you in honoring your loved one. Last year, I told a story about my friend Jan Rush and her love of keeping her daughter Bethany's memory alive by talking about her, and that will always resonate with me. This year, I want to tell a different story, and I always like to give my story or my talks a theme. This year is called I Am a Frontline Worker. This story is about when I had an epiphany that I am a frontline worker. I always knew that what I do have value, but it really hit me because of the reality of it. So this particular day I was covering for one of the chaplains, so I had to put on my chaplain hat that day. And WakeMed has always provided me with the proper PPE that I needed, and this has given me a high level of confidence to come into work, and especially during the pandemic. And so there was a time that I had to put this high level of confidence into action. So there was a patient that was actively dying from COVID, and so the family members were allowed to come in and visit. And so when the family members came up, I asked them, "Do you want me to go in with you?" And they said yes. And so I will say the staff, the nurses, they did a wonderful job helping us get dressed up and suited up in the proper PPE. And so I wanted you all to see a visual in what all we had to put on in order to go into the room. And so I would be lying if I didn't say I wasn't a little bit nervous. But then I went through the threshold of the door with the family. I looked around and I was like, I did it. I'll be okay. It's okay. And then I looked into the eyes of those family members and I realized something. They were even more afraid. But they wanted to say their goodbyes to their loved one. They wanted to spend those sacred moments with their loved one. And they had comfort. When they saw my badge that said spiritual care, it brought comfort to them, and they wanted me there with them in the room. And so I stayed with them so long that the nurse came back to check on us, and I said, "Oh, I'm okay. I'll stay a while longer," because I also realized that my non-anxious presence brought them comfort. And so I stayed with them in the room. And by then, any fear or nervousness that I may have had, any fear or nervousness that they may have had dissipated. And we held hands, and we laughed, and they told me the patient's life story, what that patient was like, the time they spent together. We prayed. I prayed for them. I prayed for the patient. And there was an ease and there was a calm that came over the room. And a deep compassion fell upon my heart. And so, I asked myself, how could I not go into the rooms with the patients? And that was just my first encounter, so it resonates with me always. It will always be with me. So as of now, I've lost count of, how many rooms I've gone in. But that was my first, so that one will always stay with me. And so that's why I said I have an epiphany that I am a frontline worker. And so I've read about this man named Paul. He said he became all things to all people. And that meant he made sacrifices to make sure that people he was serving, that they were saved, that they had everything that they needed. And that's the epitome of what a frontline worker is. And so in the face of COVID and this Delta variant, it brought about a lot of visitor restrictions. But just to be clear, that came about to keep everyone safe. Patients, staff, everyone, other family members. And so that was an effort to keep everyone safe. And even when some of those restrictions were lifted, some of the family members could not come into the hospital because they themselves had COVID, and several family members. And so the staff members, spiritual care, and I'm proud to say that, sprang into action to become those frontline workers, to become all things to all people. To offer that care. And so that's why I say, and it's a team effort. It's hard work. And so I want to say this. I hope that you know that me and my colleagues in the spiritual care department have treated your loved ones with dignity and respect. We've held their hands. We've wiped their tears. We've shed tears. We've calmed their fears, validated their feelings. We've even sang. And I'm not even a good singer. We've read, we've prayed, encouraged, been fully present. We've become tech savvy with iPads, iPhones, Zoom family meetings. We've given hugs, attended family meetings. We've sat with them in their grief, dark places, and trauma. We've made legacy items. We've listened to their life stories. We've held their hands so they wouldn't have to be alone, die alone. And geared up in any PPE that was necessary so that they could have visits and have that human touch. So thank you for allowing us, or me and my colleagues, to be the frontline workers for you and your loved ones in their time of need. I am a frontline worker.
Good evening. My name is Allie Mosey. I'm a nurse practitioner with the WakeMed Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine team, and it is an honor to be here. I have to be honest, I have struggled a bit with what to say, what part I can play in easing the pain, loss, and grief that you are feeling. And honestly, that's just it. There are no right words. There's no way to fix it, to fix the loss and grief that you're feeling. And that's hard. My whole career revolves around fixing. Most often that fixing is fixing an illness or an injury that brings a patient in and getting them better so they can go back home to be with their families or to their home, their career, or sometimes just to a rocking chair on the front porch, wherever they are happiest and where they want to be. But fixing also means helping patients make decisions about how they want their last days to be, what they want the end of their life to look like. It means helping families with those decisions and doing what we can to ease suffering at the end of life. This past year has seen a lot of loss, much more than any of us are accustomed to. And we have been doing more of this kind of fixing than any of us would like. So while I can't take away your feelings of grief and loss, what I would like to do is just to share my perspective from the ICU and talk about the ways we honored your loved ones during their life and death, and perhaps provide just a little bit of comfort. The last year and a half has been so very awful for so many people. Not only has COVID taken away our loved ones, it's also taken away the ability for loved ones to be surrounded by their families, friends, and support systems when they needed them most, regardless of what brought them to the hospital. And that has been devastating. Our team, which, as you've already heard, is larger than just me. It's providers and nurses and respiratory therapists, nurse techs, spiritual care, list goes on. We're familiar with death, particularly in the ICU. It unfortunately comes with the territory. We care for the sickest of the sick patients, and while our drive is to get them better, there are times that despite everything we do, patients will die. While it's never easy, our role is to support the patients and you, their families and loved ones at the end of their life. Before COVID, families would come to bedside for long periods of time, days, hours. They could come and go as they needed to, take a break, come back. We gave them space and privacy to visit with their loved ones and say their goodbyes. We were there as needed to answer questions, provide support, maybe a shoulder to cry on, or even give a hug, but we were in the background. Unfortunately, the last year and a half has required that we turn that process upside down. You, as the family, friends, and support, may not have been able to visit with your loved one unless death was imminent, or you may not have been able to visit at all. Your goodbyes may have been said over an iPad or a telephone held up to your loved one's ear. You may not have been able to see what was happening, minute to minute or hour to hour. You had to trust us more than ever before. You had to trust that we were doing everything, telling you everything, and trust that we were taking care of your loved one as though they were our own. What I want to tell you, and what I want you to hear and feel in your heart, is that we did everything we could to take care of your loved ones. Not just medically, but as one human to another. No matter how much time we had with them, minutes, days, weeks, we did not forget we were caring for a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, a teacher, a coach, a grandparent, a person with a life full of memories and experiences that defined them. A person that was so much more than the illness that brought them to us. If they could talk with us, we talked to them about their life, their families, their favorite movies, their favorite baseball team. I even know a few that got their nails painted their favorite color. We would run down and grab a coffee for them, or if we could, a chocolate chip cookie, if we could sneak one in. If they were too sick to talk or eat, we still talked to them. And we played music in their rooms or put on their favorite show on TV. We took care to maintain their dignity. And when it was clear that despite everything your loved ones were going to pass, we made sure they were not alone. We held their hand, as Monica said, we sang to them, even if we couldn't sing very well, and we made sure they knew they were not alone. And then we cried. Whether it was with you as you hurried in at the end during your window of visitation, or after our shift on the way home, or when we held up the phones to ears or the iPads so they could see you, when we were privy to conversations that we weren't supposed to hear, conversations we would typically leave the room for, those most sacred and private moments. Our hearts broke with you and we cried. And I am so very sorry for your loss. My team grieves with you, and we remember your loved ones and honor each and every one of them. Thank you.
My name is Jesse O'Neill. I am the staff chaplain in the emergency departments here at WakeMed Raleigh. Here in central North Carolina, summer's heat is broken. Afternoon temperatures in the 90s have given way to the 80s or lower, and each morning we are greeted with a freshening breeze, a breeze that seeks to shoulder summer off and away. It is a time each year when humankind and nature seem less at war. We are not suffering the oppressive humidity of midsummer. We are not scrambling from air-conditioned buildings to air-conditioned cars. We are not consuming great gobs of energy to move heat out of habitations into the ambient air. In winter has not yet come. Winter's urgency of staying warm is a way off yet. We open our windows to nature. We shut off the air conditioning and breathe. It is a season of ease, but for many, it is also a season of sorrow. Many of us have lost loved ones in this last year, many to COVID, but there are many deaths unrelated to COVID, and all of these deaths should be acknowledged. And so, in this moment, at this time, we acknowledge those loved ones that have died and the grief that is felt by those in our nearby community and beyond. In this season, our popular culture encourages anxiety. Even now, more than a month away from Halloween, there are reports that gifts for the holidays will be delayed or even unavailable. The strident call to shop early has already begun, and such messages are everywhere. They're unavoidable. Taking this advice means emotionally skipping over Halloween, skipping over Thanksgiving, and being anxious today, September 30th, for events in late December. I want to encourage you to be different. I want to encourage you to be here, anchored in the present moment. I want you to take time each morning to slowly, even reverently, breathe in the cool air of fall. I want you to find a moment of peace as you carefully watch one leaf flutter to the ground. One leaf as a symbol of the cycle of nature, nature renewing itself. The leaf in time will become mulch, and that will become part of the soil. And so it goes in the cycle of life for our beautiful little blue planet. We are, all of us, part of this biological cycle, and yet we have something special. We have, by the grace of God, and as a challenge from God, we have consciousness, we have love, we have memory. We love others. We love our spouses, our children, our parents. We love our friends. We love our pets. We even, I hope, love ourselves. And when we lose them, we grieve. Sometimes that grief seems impossible to bear. Sometimes it seems to even overshadow the love. We might even question the logic of loving. Does love always lead to grief? Does it inexorably lead to grief? What are we to make of this? What are we to make of this? In my household, there is an unbreakable holiday tradition. My middle child, daughter Megan, who is now 32, since she was a little girl, she has been the one to help Dad get the lights on the tree. She's the one who would test each string, replace the burned out bulbs, and carefully hand the strings to me as I circled the tree, placing lights on each succeeding layer of branches. We started this almost 30 years ago, when the colored lights were those large bulbs that could burn you. I would string them across my shoulder as I fed them onto the tree and could get little burn marks on my neck. I would laughingly blame that on Megan, and she would laugh too. And this always had to be done with the Elvis Presley Christmas CD. That's how the process got started, and that's the only music that will do. I believe that love and grief are dimensions of the same emotion. Grief is a yearning for the presence of someone we love. It is, in this way, an extension of love, an expression of love. Grief is an emotion that bubbles up unexpectedly to remind us that we love and whom we love. I believe that long after I'm gone, Megan will be playing Elvis as she strings the lights on her tree. She may grieve my passing, and I hope that grief will easily and quickly give way to love as she remembers the many moments that we shared in the simple task, a task that became sacramental to us both. And so it will be this holiday season in your home. I hope that you remember and engage in those family traditions that were shared with your deceased loved ones, that you might feel afresh those feelings of affection, that you might be uplifted by laughing once again, that you might hear Elvis again and shed tears of joy over love brought to you from a place divine. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, I'm incredibly honored to be here tonight. I've been asked to say a few words. My name is Dawn Garwood. I'm a physician assistant with a team here at the hospital called Transitions Life Care, the palliative care team at WakeMed Hospitals. Palliative medicine is a supportive care team, a specialty that works with patients and families with serious illness. Our interdisciplinary team includes members from physicians and nurse practitioners and PAs, counselors, nurses, and with the help of our wonderful spiritual care team, they join us in many times as well. We talk with patients and families about goals for their care. We manage symptoms and we provide psychosocial support to patients and families. We often work with critically ill or injured patients in the ICU, as well as many other settings throughout the hospital with chronic, progressive, life-limiting illnesses like heart or kidney failure, lung disease, cancer, etc. We may have been involved in your loved one's care at WakeMed or in our community home-based palliative care service. While palliative care is not the same as hospice care, in the hospital we do frequently work with people as they near the end of their lives. I'm asked quite often, how do I do this kind of work? My answer is mostly because I can, because it's my calling, my gift from God, a calling that I was able to realize about 9 years ago after a career in emergency medicine, urgent care, and PA education. But I also do this work because there is a tremendous satisfaction for me in walking with families and patients in some of the most difficult times of their lives, and being sure that patients receive the type of care that they want for themselves. The simple reality in medicine is that while we can do a great deal, we still cannot fix everything. The sad truth is, at times, we can prolong an inevitable outcome. We can prolong or worsen suffering if we are not mindful of an individual's goals for their care and are not able to communicate gently but honestly in those situations. That is the role of the palliative care team. It may seem odd perhaps, but one of my greatest satisfactions is what we refer to as allowing a good death, a peaceful passing, from this world to the next, with symptoms such as trouble breathing, pain, agitation, well managed, and commonly with loved ones by their side. Occasionally, it may not be possible for a loved one's family members to be there at the end of their lives. One of the most touching scenes that I've witnessed many times, but most recently just a couple weeks ago at the hospital, is when I walked into a room to see a new consult on a young 50-year-old woman with heart failure who had taken a very sudden turn for the worse. She was actively dying when I walked in the room, and her family had not been able to get there yet, though they did before she passed. But what I saw was a nurse, a busy nurse, a nurse with other responsibilities, sitting by the bedside, and a chaplain on the other side, each holding her hand so that she did not die alone, she did not die in fear. I was moved to tears, and this happens all the time at our hospital, and I'm sure many others. I'm newer to Transitions Life Care and to WakeMed Hospitals, recently relocating from a hospital in Asheville where I did the same work. In my time here, I've noticed several traditions that were new to me and are so affirming of how we care for our patients and their loved ones. Please allow me to share a couple examples. In the ICU at WakeMed Cary, there's a candle within a lantern sitting on the counter at the nursing station next to a framed sign that reads, "If this candle is lit, someone is saying goodbye to a loved one. We ask that you please speak softly and with respect during this time. Thank you for your kindness and compassion." When notified of a patient's passing, my colleagues often respond, "May they rest in peace." I think that we honor people that way. Every week, our team reads the names of those on our service who have recently passed. It is a simple tribute to these patients and the people who loved them. And lastly, the staff at the William M. Dunlap Hospice House stand in the hallway as an honor guard when the funeral homes are leaving with the body of one of their patients. These small acts, and many like them that occur daily throughout our hospital, are a testament to the privilege it is for those of us in healthcare to be part of your loved one's care at the end of their life. And I hope, in some small measure, this comforts you in your loss. But what always amazes me the most is the graciousness of families who, despite their overwhelming grief at the time, sincerely thank the team for caring for their loved one. This warms my heart, and it makes our often challenging work worth it. Thank you for allowing me to join your memorial tonight. I wish you peace and healing.
Hello. My name is Andy Ross. I am a staff chaplain here at WakeMed in Raleigh. And today I have the honor and the privilege of lighting this candle. Rituals are the most important thing we do. We are people of rituals, and we do this so that we can participate consciously in what's happening around us and in what's happening within us. Today we light this candle for all the candles that have gone out over this last year and years before that. But we also light this candle to remind us that some lights never go out. The lights in our memories, the lights in our hearts, the lights in our prayers. We light this candle for you
We light this candle for your loved ones, for your grandfathers and grandmothers, for your mothers and fathers, for your sisters, for your brothers, for your friends, and for your children. And we are honored to have you participate in this sacred ritual with us today. So as I light this candle, I invite you to light a candle at home, to take your time, to allow the flame to burn, and in that space that we have created together, to say the name of the loved one that you are remembering today. After I light this candle, we will have some space for that, and I invite you to do this with me now. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Leslie Nambo. Please join me in the responsive tribute, We Remember Them, printed on your program. We will do each section first in English, then in Spanish. I will read the plain text and invite you to respond by reading the bold text, We Remember Them, in English, and Los Recordamos in Spanish. We remember them. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. Al nacer del sol y a ponerse, los recordamos. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. En el soplo del viento y en el frío de invierno, lo recordamos. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. Al abrirse los capullos y al renacer la primavera, los recordamos. In the blueness of the skies and the warmth of summer, we remember them. En lo azulado de los cielos y en el calor del verano, los recordamos. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. Al susurrar las hojas y la belleza del otoño, los recordamos. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. Cuando empieza el año y cuando termina, los recordamos. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. Cuando estemos cansados y necesitemos fuerzas, los recordamos. When we are lost and sick of heart, we remember them. Cuando estemos perdidos y enfermos del corazón, los recordamos. When we have joys and special celebrations we yearn to share, we remember them. Cuando tenemos alegría, anhelamos compartir, los recordamos. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are part of us. We remember them. Mientras vivamos, ellos también vivirán, porque ahora son parte de nosotros como los recordamos. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Hale, and I'm the supervisor in the spiritual care department. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. As we close our time together, I'd like to share a blessing by Jan Richardson from her book, The Cure for Sorrow. This is Blessing for the Brokenhearted. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound, when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now, it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made precisely for this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless. Thank you again for allowing us to honor your loved ones this evening. Good night, and peace be with you.